Welcome everyone. We're going to take a look at cross contour as it relates to a pear. And so you can see I've got a photograph over there to the right. I'm not actually drawing from the photograph. I have the pear sitting in front of me. So I encourage you all to set that up in life to get this drawing. You'll be able to perceive the form a little bit better. I'm going to start with a rough, very faint pencil line drawing, and then I'll go back in with an HB pencil and just darken it a little bit. It is going to share an edge with a kind of practice sketch, if you will, but that is absolutely okay. If you need to clean some of that up, you can, but it's okay that there's a little bit of quote-unquote sketchiness to it, if you will. But I would try to be as specific with the lines as you can, ultimately. I've laid in a pencil line for a background table edge, and now I'm going to imagine essentially that an ant is walking across that surface, and you're tracing along its path. Trying to think about how it's going to rotate around this form, and as it rotates around that form, I'm going to look for those spaces to get closer together to help provide the illusion that there's a little bit of form and space wrapping around. So they're much tighter to the outside edges, and they closely approximate what I see as I let my eye travel down that surface of the pear. Now I'm going in at the last minute here, and this is an optional thing, but I'm following that core shadow idea that's happening on the pear and just darkening a couple moments there to help give the line weight a little bit something extra. That line weight pulls the middle of the belly forward a little bit, and it allows it to sink into the shadow just a little, so it provides a little more dimension than I was getting. In the background, I'm going to imagine that it is against a flat gray wall and put essentially some wallpaper down it. These are going to be as evenly spaced as I can make them, and do the best you can. I'm not looking for a ruler line, but as you're laying in a line like this, it helps not to focus on the pencil point, but rather where you want to go with the line. And now I'm going to look at a little bit of a perspective grid on the base. Again, do the best you can here. I would say don't let them be perfectly vertical, but I'm trying to look at dragging the line down off the wall and flows out from behind the pear then until ultimately I can connect line to line. So they fan across. And I'll do the same thing on the other side. Again, do not be too focused on the perspective involved here. Just try to approximate the surface, which is what we're doing here. How would you describe the flat table surface? And these are done with vertical marks right now, so if you took each one as a cross-section through that ground and background, they would line up. And that's what I've done on the pear, is if you could cut through it vertically all the way across. And again, here I've just deepened the value in the foreground, so it feels like there's a little bit more spatial development going on. Cleaning up the last edges, and we're ready to move on. That was the vertical analysis. Now we're going to look at horizontal. So this is as if you're slicing it horizontally. So you can see each of the curves kind of wrap with the form. So I'll rough this in very quickly again like I did on the first one, and we'll move on from there in short order. Now this is not one that you have to do. I'm asking you to just watch it here isolated because I think it's informative to see the process, but it will be combined in your grid of 3 pieces on our pear chart. It'll be combined with the vertical and horizontal into one, more like a grid, and we'll do that one next. So literally following the same process though. Don't worry if it's not exactly the same as your other drawings. You're a human. The pear is organic. It's still going to look like a pear. Now here again, we're looking horizontally. So I almost started drawing it vertically. In the background, I'm going to look for very evenly spaced horizontal stripes. Just like the vertical ones were pretty evenly spaced. Do the best you can. Don't spend a lot of time with a ruler doing this, because the ruler line will look very different from the lines you're drawing on the pear. So I'm all about consistency and not making this feel too mechanical. Now, as we move to the ground, think about how things will recede and get smaller as they go back. So the distance between each line should get bigger as I come forward. That's going to be the only way you're going to get that illusion of depth here, other than bringing a little bit more heavy line weight in the foreground. Now moving to the pear, I like to start in the belly, get that roundness, and round it into the form on the sides. Don't necessarily let it come to a corner, an edge. Bring it up around, and now as we come down to the base, get those lines closer together, just like I did on the ground plane. A little closer together as you get down there. As we move up to the top, there's some interpretation to happen here. So I'm thinking at the top, how do I want that to look? Do I want it to curve over like a rainbow? Do I want it to curve under a little bit? So I'm going to do one way on this one, and I'll do it slightly different on the second one. I'm going to go over and around that form. And there's about where I think my horizon line is, so it's kind of flat there. I'm going to reintroduce the curvature, rounding around the edges. That's so important. And that's the last part of that one. And we'll move on to a combination of the vertical and horizontal. So this is one that you need to do for our chart as well. Again, laying this in very quickly. Make corrections as you go, but don't obsess about it. Be confident with these lines. I want a pretty continuous line, not a sketchy, scribbly, fuzzy line. Be confident. Confident line is much more interesting to look at than a hesitant, guesswork kind of line. All right, I'm going to start with the horizontal, but you can start with the vertical. It's up to you. Bringing those thicker in the foreground. And again, very consistent on the wall in the background. Bring that vertical down. I'm establishing the ground first for no other reason than that's where I decided to start. You can certainly start on the pear, that's totally fine. Bringing those diagonal lines out a little bit stronger on the outside, getting more vertical near the middle, and making sure I connect them with what exists in the background just for clarity. Darkening those lines just a little bit in the foreground. And we're on to the pear. So it's oftentimes something that I'll start here near the middle, not quite a straight line. Emphasizing the lines a little bit more as I'm going this time. Closer together on the outside edges. Kind of a straight line there, but it definitely flows over the contour just a little bit. Clean that line up. And we're ready for horizontal. Again, starting near the belly. Widest point there. Space between the lines is widest near the most round point closest to you on the sphere. And then moving up to the top here. I'm going to alter what I do on this one at the top. So pay attention to what I was thinking about there. I grabbed my pear just to feel it out a little bit more. So here I'm going to imagine I'm looking down on it a little bit more. So the curvature stays like a smiley face curve. I don't get it to round over the top. And just cleaning it up a little bit. And we'll reach a conclusion here momentarily, and you'll see them all together as we're going to do for our chart. And then we'll send you to the cross-hatching exercise. This is the process: vertical analysis, vertical and horizontal analysis, and then you're going to apply that information to the crosshatch example. And then I've got a few more studies that you can look at for a new angle. Make sure that you try a couple different angles. Thanks, everyone.